Hello, my dear friends. In this video, we will discuss the most important events that have taken place over the past 12 hours. We have many very interesting updates, so let's get started. The most important updates come from North America, where the 72nd U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Antonio Rubio, has arrived in Panama for a visit. Let's discuss this in detail. We have many interesting updates. According to the information we have, Panamanian President José Raúl Molina, after meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, announced that Panama would cease its participation in China's Belt and Road Initiative. According to current sources, Rubio issued an ultimatum to the president during the meeting, stating that the United States would take necessary measures to protect its rights under the Torrijos-Carter Treaty if Panama did not take immediate action to eliminate Chinese influence in the Panama Canal Zone. According to Molina, the further presence of China in Panama, particularly the control of port infrastructure by Chinese companies, will also be discussed, with special attention given to their auditing. This is very important information. Most importantly, this is a significant and crucial update for China because, in my opinion, no one in the world knew that the United States was ready to take action in North America and could resolve these issues so quickly. Clearly, Chinese companies and China itself were unprepared for this situation. Another important update comes from Cuba. According to the information we have, U.S. Marines have arrived in Guantanamo to support the deployment of illegal allies. This is also very important information. We see that Trump is trying to complete everything he promised as soon as possible and will then begin working on other global issues. Another major update comes from Canada. According to our information, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has announced that Canada will respond to the 25% tariffs imposed by Trump on Canadian goods by issuing a Supreme Court ruling banning them. This is another significant update for the United States. For me, the most optimistic aspect is the U.S. decision to ban Canadian goods. As you can see, interim reports are already emerging on tariffs totaling $135 billion, affecting goods entering Canada. Mexico is in a much worse position compared to Canada. The US and Canada are not united on this issue, and both countries want to fully recover from the losses caused by US tariffs. They are uncertain about their exact plans, but people are hoping to keep their property within their own country. This is a very important week for them and a crucial update for the US. We are very pleased to see that the US is not planning any counterterrorism operations on Canadian soil. As for Mexico, we remember that the U.S. has already reinforced the border by deploying additional troops there. Furthermore, based on experiences in Panama, Cuba, and Canada, it is likely that Donald Trump will sooner or later initiate this counterterrorism operation. Now, let's move on and discuss the situation in China, because it is evident that this primarily offended China. Now we will wait to see what exactly China will do in response to the tariffs and the situation in Panama. According to the information we have, China has imposed 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, as well as 10% tariffs on the US. Let's wait and see how China responds, because it is clear that China needs to take action, or it will find itself at a disadvantage. Now, let's look at the situation in Ukraine. According to recent reports, Putin has stated that sooner or later, Trump will win this battle and make the entire world follow his 4-year term. Now, let's discuss the situation in Ukraine. Zelensky is ready for negotiations. He stated, "We Ukrainians have suffered enormous losses, and today we are closer to peace than ever before in 3 years of war." So he is ready to start peace talks while continuing to discuss some peacekeeping initiatives and U.S. involvement in the process. Once again, I remind you that Russia will not accept the presence of any Western troops on Ukrainian territory. Additionally, the first details are emerging about an audit conducted in recent days regarding the money Ukraine received during the special military operation. Zelensky stated that Ukraine has received only $75 billion out of the promised $177 billion. So the question arises, where exactly is the missing $100 billion? Obviously, the U.S. will find an answer to this question. Regarding the situation on the ground, there are many important updates from the past 24 hours. Let's first discuss the Sumy direction. According to our information, in the last 24 hours, Russian forces managed to locate Ukrainian armored units in this area, and as a result of Iskander strikes, a major Ukrainian armored base was destroyed. The Ukrainians suffered losses, and most likely, their plans to deploy additional forces in this area were disrupted. As for the Sudzha direction, according to available reports, heavy fighting is taking place there. Today, sources have published a map showing 4 fire anomalies. The settlement is completely engulfed in flames. According to various sources, heavy fighting is already taking place in the settlement itself. Additionally, according to the information we have, Russian forces have managed to cross the Sel River and are currently advancing toward the settlement of Gavo. Intense battles are also ongoing there, with fighting taking place on the Ukrainian side of the river. Let's wait and see what happens next. However, if Ukrainian forces lose control over Gavo, Russian troops will face no obstacles in advancing further toward the N07 road. According to the data we have received, Russian forces have already established near total control over this main artery. Now, let's move on and discuss the situation in the northern Kupiansk direction, where, according to our information, Russian forces have improved their positions and gained full control over several more territories. This information has been provided by neutral cartographers. After a very brief operational pause, Russian forces took control of the Kupianka rotation route. For instance, this was the situation at the end of February 1st, then at the end of February 2nd, and finally at the beginning of February 3rd. Russian troops continue to advance, securing more and more territory. As for the Lyman direction, we observe a similar situation. Over the past 24 hours, Russian forces have significantly improved their positions, taking control of a stronghold between the settlements of Kolodyazin and Ivanivka. We have geolocation data confirming this. In one of the video materials, Ukrainian forces can be seen bombing Russian soldiers at this very location. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map. Additionally, we have several reports from neutral cartographers about further changes on the ground and from pro-Ukrainian sources. We see that Russian troops are approaching the settlement of Kolodyazin. I remind you that if the village of Kolodyazin falls, Russian forces will encounter no obstacles in advancing further south toward the settlements of Lyman and Zarekh. This is precisely what Russian forces are planning to do right now. Now let's discuss the situation in the Kostiantynivka direction. According to our information over the past 24 hours, Russian forces have managed to establish full control over the settlement of Vodiane. This is a very significant achievement, according to Russian military representatives. Within the operational space, they are now free to choose their next move. Most likely, they will attack the settlement of Nova Poltavka, an important village located along the N32 road. Russia needs to capture this village to secure its flanks. Of course, Russian forces will continue advancing toward Rosoka and Berezovka. We will see updates and clashes in the very near future. Regarding the Pokrovsk direction, the situation here has fully stabilized. Despite reports of heavy fighting in the area, we have not received any reports of further territorial changes over the past week. Russian forces have shifted their focus to the Dnipro direction, where they continue their advance. Today, we received another geolocation confirmation of Russian presence in the southern part of Nadzhdan. In the video, Ukrainian forces can be seen arriving in the area to evacuate soldiers. They began the evacuation process, but then Russian troops attacked a Bradley fighting vehicle with an anti-tank missile at very close range. Ukrainian forces were forced to retreat as quickly as possible. According to our information over the past 24 hours, Russian forces have improved their positions in the village of Srebrensk. This has been confirmed by both pro-Ukrainian sources and neutral ones. It is highly likely that the village of Srebren is already under Russian control. Meanwhile, the first clashes have begun in the Zaporizhia region. Russian forces are on the front lines, and the Russian army is advancing. As we can see, the further west Russian forces move, the faster they are capturing new settlements. Now let's discuss the situation around the Andrivka fortified area. According to our information, Russian forces have improved their positions in the settlement of Dakhny. Currently, according to both pro-Ukrainian and neutral sources, Russian forces control about 60% of the settlement, while Ukrainian forces hold only the western part. Most likely, Ukrainian troops will take several strategic measures and concentrate their forces in the region soon. We are awaiting daily reports from Ukrainian authorities. Additionally, between February 3rd and 4th, Ukrainian forces will likely be forced to withdraw from this area toward a stronghold located along the supply line. Regarding the area around the settlement of Velikano-Vasilivka, we have not received any significant updates in the past 24 hours. As can be observed, the situation is becoming increasingly difficult for Ukrainian forces. Furthermore, we note growing resistance from Ukrainian civilians. According to our information, a powerful explosion occurred near the center of Verbavka. Sources report that Ukrainian authorities are in panic, as such incidents are becoming more frequent. Most likely, civilians will intensify their activities in this direction, attacking mobilization centers across Ukraine in an attempt to sabotage and disrupt plans for recruiting additional forces.